The revelation. The Galactic Confederation fleet hung in the void like a shimmering constellation, their ships polished to mirror-like perfection. Admiral Zorvex stood on the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominance, his four arms folded behind his back as he gazed at the holographic display. The primitive human vessel appeared there, a dark, angular shape against the backdrop of stars, moving steadily toward the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. "Magnify," he ordered, his secondary vocal cords producing the harmonic tones that signified authority among his kind. The image expanded, revealing more details of Earth's warship. It was unrefined by Confederation standards, functional rather than elegant, with none of the sweeping curves and crystalline accents that defined advanced galactic engineering. Humans called it the Nemesis, and it was the first of their deep space military vessels to venture beyond their solar system. "Hardly impressive," commented Sub-Commander Thela, her scaled skin rippling with amusement. "Their propulsion system is barely seventh-generation technology." Admiral Zorvex wasn't so quick to dismiss the vessel. In his 3 centuries commanding the expansion fleet, he had learned that appearances could be deceiving. "Conduct a full spectrum scan. I want to know everything about that ship before we make contact." On board the Nemesis, Captain Ilara Chen felt the subtle vibration through her boots that indicated the ship had adjusted course. She didn't need to check the navigation console. She could feel the ship's movements as if they were extensions of her own body. Unlike most captains who rose through military ranks, Ilara had come from the asteroid mining colonies of the belt, places where survival depended on intuition and quick thinking rather than protocol. Her scurred hands moved across the smooth surface of the command interface. The neural interface band around her forehead glowed with a soft blue light, connecting her directly to the ship's systems. "Captain, we're being scanned," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Multiple frequencies, very thorough." Ilara nodded, unperturbed. "Let them look. Maintain current course and speed." "Should we raise shields?" asked Tactical Officer Rivera, her finger hovering over the defense systems. "Not yet," Ilara replied. "Let's not appear hostile until we need to." The Nemesis continued its deliberate course, seemingly oblivious to the scrutiny it was under. But beneath its unremarkable exterior, systems unlike anything in the Confederation's experience were quietly activating. Back on the Eternal Dominance, the scan results were causing confusion. "Admiral, these readings don't make sense," said the science officer, his tentacles twitching in agitation. "The ship's power signature is fluctuating in patterns I've never seen before. And there's something at the core. It's like it's alive." Admiral Zorvex leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Explain." "The core energy signature doesn't match any known reactor type. It's organic in nature, almost as if it's responding to stimuli. And the hull, our scans can't penetrate certain sections. They're showing us both there and not there simultaneously." The Admiral's expression darkened. The Confederation had conquered 17 star systems in the last millennium, always following the same pattern. Identify a technologically inferior species, overwhelm them with superior firepower, and absorb them into the hierarchy. Humanity was supposed to be no different, a species barely capable of interstellar travel, ripe for subjugation. "Prepare a greeting party," he ordered. 3 cruisers, armed but with weapons powered down. Let's see how they respond to a show of force disguised as diplomacy. 3 sleek vessels detached from the Confederation fleet, their hulls gleaming with iridescent metals unknown to Earth science. They formed a triangular formation and accelerated toward the Nemesis, their engines leaving trails of exotic particles in their wake. On the Nemesis, Ilara watched the approaching ships with calm assessment. She had grown up watching friends and family die when corporate mining ships failed to respect the territory of independent operators. The pattern was familiar, a show of power meant to intimidate. "They're moving to surround us," said Jackson. "Classic containment formation." Ilara nodded. "Now we can raise shields." As the words left her mouth, A shimmering field enveloped the Nemesis, not the expected blue energy barrier of conventional shield technology, but a subtle distortion of space itself around the hull. In the lead Confederation cruiser, sensors blared warnings. "What is that?" demanded the captain. "What kind of shielding are they using?" Before anyone could answer, a communication request came through from the Nemesis. On the main view screen, Captain Ilara Chen appeared, her Asian features set in a neutral expression, the neural interface band, a stark contrast against her short black hair. "This is Captain Ilara Chen of the Earth vessel Nemesis. You have entered a restricted zone around our ship. Please maintain your current distance." The Confederation captain, a tall insectoid being named Krith Tal, chittered in amusement. "Human vessel, this is Captain Krith Tal of the Galactic Confederation. We come with peaceful intentions to welcome your species to the greater galactic community. Please lower your unusual defenses as a sign of goodwill." Ilara's expression didn't change. "We appreciate your welcome, Captain Krith Tal. However, our defensive measures will remain active. If you wish to communicate further, we can establish a neutral meeting point." The insectoid captain's mandibles clicked in irritation. This was not how first contacts usually proceeded. Primitives were supposed to be awed by Confederation technology, not setting terms. "Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand your situation better," Krithtal said, signaling to his weapons officer. A warning shot, a low-powered plasma burst, launched from the cruiser's forward battery. It was standard procedure. Show the primitives the futility of resistance without causing actual damage. The plasma burst never reached the Nemesis. As it approached the distortion field, it simply vanished. On the Nemesis, Ilara remained calm. "I would advise against further demonstrations, Captain Krithtal. We came to explore, not to fight, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." In that moment, something changed in the Confederation ship's sensor readings. The Nemesis began to transform. Sections of the hull that had appeared solid now reconfigured, revealing weapon ports unlike anything in the Confederation archives. The ship's power signature surged, and the distortion field expanded. Admiral Zorvex, watching from the flagship, felt a chill of recognition. He had seen something like this only once before, in ancient records from the early days of the Confederation. Technology that didn't just use the physical laws of the universe, but somehow bent them. "Recall the cruisers," he ordered sharply. "Immediately." But it was too late. Captain Krithtal, insulted by the humans' lack of proper deference, had already ordered a full weapons lock. "Target their propulsion systems," he commanded. "Let's see how confident they are when they're stranded in space." Multiple energy beams lanced out from the Confederation cruisers, converging on the Nemesis. What happened next would be recorded in Confederation historical archives as the revelation. The energy beams curved as they approached the Nemesis, redirected by forces that defied conventional physics. Some dissipated harmlessly into space. Others were absorbed by the ship's hull, which glowed briefly with the captured energy. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Ilara closed her eyes, the neural interface band glowing more intensely. "Nexus Core, active defense protocol," she said quietly. Deep within the ship, in a chamber that only a handful of humans had ever entered, something awakened. Not a machine, not a computer, but something in between. A synthesis of organic neural networks and quantum technology. The Nexus Core was humanity's greatest secret, developed not from conquest or theft, but from desperate innovation, when Earth had nearly destroyed itself in the climate wars of the previous century. The Core responded to Ilara's command, not just through programming, but through a symbiotic relationship that scientists still didn't fully understand. Energy coursed through the ship, altering its very structure at the molecular level. The Nemesis changed before the stunned eyes of the Confederation forces. Its hull rippled like liquid metal, reconfiguring into a more aggressive form. Weapon ports opened along previously smooth surfaces, and a pulsing glow emanated from deep within the ship. "What is this?" breathed Krithtal. his mandibles frozen in shock. His answer came in the form of a focused energy pulse that struck his cruiser with surgical precision. The beam didn't explode or incinerate. Instead, it simply passed through the ship's shields as if they weren't there and severed the power connections to the weapon systems. In an instant, the cruiser's weapons went dark. The other two cruisers, witnessing this impossible feat, opened fire with everything they had. The space around the Nemesis lit up with energy weapons, missiles, and exotic particles designed to tear apart matter at the subatomic level. None reached their target. The distortion field around the Nemesis expanded and contracted in rhythmic pulses, each one neutralizing another wave of the attack. It wasn't just deflecting the weapons, it was actively countering each specific type with a tailored defense. From the flagship, Admiral Zorvex watched in growing horror as his cruisers emptied their arsenals to no effect. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was something that shouldn't exist according to the Confederation's understanding of physics. All vessels, cease fire and withdraw, he ordered, his voice carrying the harmonic of absolute command. Too late again. The Nemesis responded to the all-out attack with precise counterstrikes. Beams of focused energy, not destructive but disabling, struck critical systems on each cruiser. Propulsion, weapons, communications, one by one, they went offline. In under a minute, 3 of the Confederation's most advanced warships hung dead in space, powerless but intact. Captain Ilara Chin's face appeared on the main view screen of the flagship Eternal Dominance. Her expression remained calm, but there was a steel in her eyes that made even the veteran admiral take notice. "Admiral Zorvex," she said, addressing him by name though it had never been provided. "The Earth vessel Nemesis was sent as an explorer and diplomat. We came in peace, hoping to establish relations with galactic civilizations. But make no mistake, humanity will not be conquered, subjugated, or absorbed into your hierarchy." The admiral stared at the human captain, understanding dawning on him with terrible clarity. Somehow, this species had developed technology that the Confederation had only theorized about. The scans hadn't been misleading. They simply couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. "How do you know my name?" he asked, buying time as he considered his options. Ilara's slight smile held no warmth. "The same way we know about the 17 systems you've conquered. The same way we know about the Confederation's standard procedures for incorporating new species. Your scans told you about our ship, Admiral. Our scans told us about you." Admiral Zorvex felt the weight of centuries of easy victories dissolve into uncertainty. The Confederation had never encountered a species that could match their technology, let alone one that might surpass it. "What are your terms?" he asked, the diplomat in him finally overriding the conqueror. "Simple," replied Ilara. "Earth and its colonies are sovereign territory. We are open to peaceful trade, cultural exchange, and diplomatic relations, but any act of aggression will be met with a response you are not prepared for." As if to emphasize her point, the Nemesis pulsed once more, and the disabled cruisers suddenly regained minimal power, enough for life support and communications, but nothing more. "Consider this a demonstration of restraint, Admiral," Ilara continued. "We could have destroyed your vessels, but that's not our way. Now shall we begin again? This time as equals." In the silence that followed, Admiral Zorvex recognized the pivotal moment for what it was. The Confederation had scanned Earth's warship and discovered something they never expected. They had awakened a monster, not one of mindless destruction, but of innovation and determination beyond anything they had encountered in 1,000 years of expansion. And in that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted irrevocably. The reckoning. The Confederation War Council, assembled in the Grand Chamber of the Eternal Dominance, holographic projections of distant fleet commanders flickered around the circular table, their faces grim. Admiral Zorvex stood at the center, his 4 arms clasped tightly behind his back as he addressed the gathering. "The human vessel has withdrawn to the edge of the system," he reported, "but they continue to monitor our communications." A murmur passed through the assembled commanders. The hegemony commander, Drakan, his reptilian features twisted in contempt, spoke first. "How is this possible? One primitive vessel shouldn't pose any challenge to Confederation forces. Our scans must have been flawed." Admiral Zorvex shook his head. "The scans were accurate, as far as our technology could interpret them. But there is something about this human ship that defies our understanding." He gestured, and a holographic representation of the Nemesis appeared above the table. Unlike the sleek, crystalline designs of Confederation vessels, the human warship was angular and functional, with none of the aesthetic considerations that marked civilized engineering throughout the galaxy. Initial scans detected standard propulsion systems, conventional hull materials, and unremarkable weapon ports. Zorvex continued. But when challenged, the hologram shifted, showing the transformation that had occurred during the confrontation. Sections of the hull that had appeared solid reconfigured themselves. Weapon ports materialized where there had been none. The very structure of the vessel seemed fluid, adaptive. "This is not merely advanced technology," Zorvex concluded. "This is something fundamentally different from anything we've encountered in 17 conquest cycles." On the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, the Nemesis maintained its position. The bridge was quiet, the crew operating with professional efficiency as they monitored the Confederation fleet. Captain Ilara Chen sat in her command chair, the neural interface band around her forehead pulsing gently with blue light as she communed with the ship. Lieutenant Commander Jackson approached, datapad in hand. "The Confederation forces are regrouping, Captain. Long-range scans indicate they're bringing in reinforcements from the neighboring systems." Ilara nodded, unsurprised. "They won't accept our terms without testing us further. Prepare the crew for potential engagement." She rose from her chair and moved to the viewport, gazing out at the distant stars. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman marked by a life of struggle. The scars on her hands were from years in the asteroid mines. The burn mark along her jawline came from a corporate security raid on her family's independent mining operation when she was just 14. But it was the less visible scars that had truly shaped her, the memories of Earth's devastating climate wars, the hard-won peace that followed, and the desperate innovation that had saved their civilization. The neural band was warm against her skin, a constant reminder of humanity's most controversial creation. The Nexus Core, a synthesis of quantum technology and organic neural networks, had emerged from the darkest period of human history, when climate catastrophe and resource wars had pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. The remaining scientists had pursued paths once considered too dangerous or ethically problematic. "How's our connection to the core?" she asked, turning to Science Officer Dr. Amara Singh. The older woman looked up from her station, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Stable and strong. The core is curious about the Confederation. It's processing their scan data at an unprecedented rate." Ilara wasn't surprised. The symbiotic relationship between the Nexus Core and its human operators had always been characterized by a childlike curiosity on the Core's part, a hunger to learn and understand that matched humanity's own driving need to explore. "Let it learn," Ilara said, "but maintain the security protocols. We don't want it revealing too much about itself." As if in response to her words, she felt a gentle pulse through the neural interface, acknowledgement from the core itself. In the Confederation War Council, the debate had grown heated. "We should obliterate them now," insisted Commander Drakan, "before they can call for reinforcements." Admiral Zorvex remained calm in the face of the commander's aggression. "We've already lost 3 cruisers, not destroyed, but completely neutralized by technology we don't understand. Escalating now could be disastrous. So we simply surrender our expansion plans because of one unusual vessel," challenged another commander, her luminous eyes blinking in disbelief. "The Confederation has never retreated." Zorvex studied the tactical display, noting the positions of his reinforcement fleets arriving from nearby systems. 20 vessels in total, cruisers, destroyers, and 1 dreadnought, all equipped with the most advanced weapons in Confederation arsenals. "Not retreat," he said finally. "A strategic assessment. We will engage this human vessel with overwhelming force, but with a specific objective. Capture, not destruction. I want that technology intact." The Council approved the plan, and preparations began immediately. The Confederation fleet moved into attack formation, a three-dimensional grid designed to prevent any possibility of escape. At its center was the dreadnought Inevitable Conquest, a vessel that had broken the will of countless civilizations with its mere appearance. Back on the Nemesis, alarms sounded. "Multiple vessels on approach," reported Tactical Officer Rivera. They'd formed a containment grid, no standard escape vectors available. Ilara returned to her command chair, her expression serene despite the threat. "They're still hoping to capture us intact. That gives us an advantage." She closed her eyes, the neural interface glowing brighter as she communed directly with the Nexus core. In her mind's eye, she could see the Confederation formation as the core processed it, not just the physical positions of the enemy vessels, but the tactical intent behind them, the weaknesses in their coordination, the patterns of their technology. "All hands to battle stations," she ordered, her eyes still closed. "Prepare for full Nexus integration." Throughout the ship, crew members settled into specialized neural interface chairs, each connecting to the core in a limited capacity. Unlike the captain's full neural link, these connections were task-specific, allowing gunners to aim with impossible precision, engineers to anticipate system needs before they arose, and navigation officers to plot courses that seemed to defy the laws of physics. On the flagship Eternal Dominance, Admiral Zorvex watched as the human vessel made no attempt to flee. "They're not even raising their shields," reported his tactical officer in disbelief. "Because they don't need to," Zorvex murmured. "At least, not shields as we understand them." He raised his voice to address the fleet. "All vessels, commence attack pattern Sigma 9. Target propulsion and communication systems only. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." 20 Confederation warships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with a dazzling array of energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and exotic particle beams. The combined firepower was enough to reduce a small moon to rubble. The Nemesis remained motionless as the barrage approached. Then, just as the weapons were about to impact, something remarkable happened. Space itself seemed to bend around the human vessel. The distortion field that had protected it earlier expanded dramatically, creating a bubble of altered physics. Energy weapons curved around this bubble, some dissipating harmlessly into space, others turning back on their sources. Kinetic projectiles slowed to a crawl, suspended in the distorted space-time surrounding the ship. Inside the Nemesis, Ilara Chen and her crew were in perfect sync with the Nexus core, their minds partly merged with its vast consciousness. Through this connection, they could perceive threats and respond with thought-speed reactions, manipulating the ship's revolutionary defenses with intuitive ease. "They're throwing everything at us," commented Jackson, his voice calm despite the spectacular light show visible through the viewport. "As expected," Ilara replied. "Nexus core, analyze attack patterns, and prepare countermeasures." She felt rather than heard the core's acknowledgement, a warm pulse through her neural link. Information flooded her consciousness. Weaknesses in the Confederation formation, vulnerabilities in their shield harmonics, predictive models of their next tactical moves. On the Confederation dreadnought, panic was setting in as sensors reported the impossible. Their weapons were having no effect. "Increase power to all batteries," ordered the dreadnought's commander. "Concentrate fire on a single point." The massive vessel's main cannon charged, drawing power from its antimatter core. The resulting beam was bright enough to temporarily blind unprotected sensors, a weapon designed to punch through planetary shields. As the beam struck the distortion field around the Nemesis, something unexpected happened. Instead of being deflected or absorbed, the energy was channeled, drawn into the human ship in a controlled flow that made the vessel glow with captured power. "They're feeding on our attack," whispered the Confederation science officer, her hands trembling over her console. Admiral Zorvex watched in growing horror as the Nemesis began to move. Not the panicked evasion he had expected, but a deliberate advance toward the center of the Confederation formation, toward the dreadnought itself. "All vessels, maintain fire," he ordered, even as doubt crept into his voice. The Nemesis accelerated, its hull still glowing with absorbed energy. As it moved, it began to change again, the transformation more dramatic than before. The angular hull flowed like liquid metal, extending projections that resembled wings or fins. The weapon ports reconfigured, combining into larger emitters that pulsed with gathered power. "What is that ship?" demanded Commander Drakan, his earlier bravado replaced by naked fear. Admiral Zorvex had no answer. In all his centuries of service, he had never witnessed anything like this. The human vessel wasn't just surviving their attack. It was evolving in response to it, adapting in real time to counter any threat. Inside the Nemesis, Ilara felt the ship's transformation, as if it were her own body changing. The Nexus core had processed the attack data and was implementing optimal countermeasures. The absorbed energy from the dreadnought's cannon had supercharged the core, expanding its capabilities beyond anything they had tested before. "The core is requesting permission to demonstrate our full capabilities," reported Dr. Singh, her voice filled with both awe and concern. "It believes a conclusive demonstration will end this conflict without further risk." Ilara considered the request carefully. The Nexus Core's suggestions were never arbitrary. Its unique blend of artificial and organic intelligence gave it insights that were often profound. But its power was such that humanity had placed strict ethical constraints on its use. "Permission granted," she decided, "but minimal casualties. This is about sending a message, not causing destruction." Through her neural link, she felt the core's acknowledgement and its childlike excitement at being allowed to fully express its capabilities. The Nemesis surged forward, closing the distance to the dreadnought in seconds. The Confederation vessels adjusted their fire, but it was futile. The distortion field bent space itself, creating shortcuts that allowed the human ship to move in ways that seemed to defy physics. "They're going to ram us," shouted the dreadnought's commander. But the Nemesis stopped just short of collision. For a moment, nothing happened. The human ship hovered before the massive dreadnought, still glowing with absorbed energy. Then, with surgical precision, the Nemesis released a pulse of energy, not in a destructive blast, but in a focused wave that washed over the dreadnought and spread outward to encompass the entire Confederation fleet. Systems failed across all 20 vessels simultaneously. Propulsion, weapons, shields, communications, everything went dark. Only life support and basic functions remained operational. In the sudden silence, Captain Ilara Chen's voice came through on all Confederation communication channels. "Admiral Zorvex, your fleet is disabled but intact. Your crews are unharmed. This demonstration was necessary to show that further conflict is futile." On the powerless bridge of the Eternal Dominance, Admiral Zorvex stared at the human vessel through the viewport. The transformation was complete now. The Nemesis barely resembled its original form. It hung in space like a metallic predator, pulsing with energy and potential. "We are open to diplomatic relations," continued Captain Chen, "but only as equals. The Confederation's days of easy conquest are over. Humanity will not be subjugated." The Admiral knew he had no choice. With his entire fleet neutralized by a single vessel, any pretense of superiority was gone. The Confederation Council would be furious. But the facts were undeniable. They had encountered a species with technology beyond their comprehension. "I accept your terms, Captain Chen," he said finally. "We will withdraw our forces and propose a formal diplomatic exchange." As the words left his mouth, power began to return to the Confederation vessels, just enough for them to limp back to their territories. 3 months later, on a neutral space station constructed specifically for the occasion, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Confederation signed the first equal treaty in Confederation history. Captain Ilara Chen stood beside Earth's diplomatic team, the neural interface band still circling her forehead, a symbol of the technology that had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Zorvex, now serving as special envoy to Earth, approached her after the ceremony. "There's a question that has been troubling me, Captain," he said, his forearms clasped in the gesture of respectful inquiry. "Your ship, the Nemesis, how did your species develop such technology? The Confederation has explored the stars for millennia, yet we've never seen anything like it." Ilara smiled faintly. "Necessity, Admiral. When your civilization was conquering worlds with easy resources and hospitable environments, humanity was fighting for survival on a planet we'd damaged almost beyond repair. The Nexus Core wasn't born from conquest or comfort. It emerged from our darkest hour, when innovation wasn't just desirable but essential for survival." Zorvex considered her words carefully. "And this core, it's alive, isn't it? In some way we don't understand." "In some way we don't fully understand either," Ilara admitted. "It's a partnership. Human intuition and creativity merged with computational power and adaptive learning. Neither fully machine nor fully organic, but something new." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The Confederation has much to learn from Earth, it seems." "And Earth has much to learn from the galaxy," Ilara replied. "That's the point of peaceful cooperation, isn't it? Mutual growth rather than conquest."